And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. And Andrew, it is finally time to talk about college football. We just had Week 0 pass us this past weekend. Week 1 of the college football season officially kicks off this upcoming Saturday. It's certainly something that not only we are looking forward to, but the rest of the college football world is looking forward to. And this is a season that is unpredictable, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to college football. It has been a hell of an offseason filled with scandals, conference realignment, NIL deals,
Yeah.
drama, and as many people know, the average college, not even college sports fan, but the average sports fan in general, they like to hold grudges. So I'm looking forward to every Michigan away game this season, even though I'm not a fan. I'm going to be paying close attention to that to see how the rest of the Big Ten treats them in away games.
Yeah, I have to check out that Connor Stallions on Netflix documentary that just came out. I haven't
I
gotten
have
a
not
chance to see
watched
it.
it yet, but I've heard some. It's pretty damning from what I've heard.
Yeah, that's definitely to say the least. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of new, stuff happening in this year's college football world. You have some new faces and new places, obviously with the transfer portal. You have new conference realignment, as you already mentioned, which will break down just a little bit in terms of who's in what conference and how that will shape up not only their current conferences, but will shape out the new college football playoff format. 12 teams will be making the college football playoff this season. You do not have to be a conference champion. That is not a criteria that you need to be to make the college football playoff. It definitely will help your case to make it, but you do not have to necessarily be a conference champion
Well,
to
Power
make the
Five
college football
conference
playoff.
champions are pretty much in now, right? That
You're
should be the
more than likely going to be guaranteed, but it's
unless
not
you're an unranked team. Let's say, oh, they're like eight
right.
and five, and then they win the conference championship. Then you're probably not in.
Right.
But that is
Exactly.
a 1 in 1 million scenario, which we will probably see anyway this
Yeah,
season. And,
I
and
don't
then
think it's
someone's gonna play in that 8 and 5 Rutgers got screwed or something like that.
yeah, I just don't see it happening just because you're gonna the top two teams are more likely going to be in each conference wise are more likely going to be teams with like 1 to 3 losses in terms of conference play. And I feel like the best way to describe it is it's kind of like each of these teams beating up at each other. And that's what this new conference realignment brings to us this season with a lot of matches that we haven't really, you don't see often that we're going to be seeing now very often for the next couple, the next decade or two that it's going to bring us to this, wild time in college football for the next couple of years. And this is the first year of it happening, and I'm very excited to break it down and see how it's all going to unfold this season.
I do want to state that conference realignment was made possible because of the expanded playoffs. You could make the argument that the expanded playoff system effectively killed the Pac-12
Yeah,
because now it was all these teams like Oregon would never go to the Big Ten if they realized they would have to. Well, there's only one playoff spot, maybe two for the Big Ten, and Ohio State and Michigan are already there. Plus Penn State's lurking too. So they would never go to the Big Ten if that was the case. You would never have Oklahoma go to the SEC if that was the case. So all these, new conferences, you have Stanford going to the ACC. It's the All Coast Conference now. That's probably the next conference to probably bite the dust in the next couple of years.
yeah. I mean, there's already been rumors of Florida State and Clemson maybe joining the
Florida
SEC as
State should
well as
not
Miami.
talk anyway. Spoiler alert for
Um,
anyone who didn't watch the game. They've
yeah,
I
they're
think
already
I
off to a
think in
bad
their
start.
last 5 years of conference games, I think they're 30-28 or something like that. So they
It's
have no
it's
right to talk.
possible, but yeah. I mean, this is probably not going to be the last time we talk about conference realignment in the next couple of years because it's probably bound to happen that we probably have a super conference for one of these conferences, more likely going to be the SEC. But that's just the world of college football that we're currently living in right now. And, maybe it's exciting times for some. Maybe it's for some, they just don't understand it. But that's the world we kind of live in right now with all this stuff happening for these universities.
I can't wait till the SEC also starts including teams in North Dakota. That's when it's really gonna go downhill.
North Dakota State?
North
Uh,
Dakota State to the SEC. You heard
yeah,
me here
why not?
first.
Put the Bison
It's
in.
Yep, it's the Southeastern Conference, and you're gonna have Washington in there in a couple of years.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, Anything's possible after what happened with Stanford and Cal going to the ACC, as you already mentioned. I mean, certainly doesn't make sense, but that's the world we're living in now. So I think the best way to start our college football preview is maybe go into the top 25 polls that we currently have going into the season. Now, obviously, these rankings are going to certainly change by the end of the year, and they're going to play a factor into who plays in the college football playoff. Obviously, we'll have the college football playoff poll later on in the season, but these teams are going to be playing a lot of ranked teams to start the year, and we have a couple of ranked teams playing each other this upcoming weekend. So that's already going to shake up to how this season's going to go. And then next week we have a top 10 matchup as long as those two teams win. So you already have all these high impact matchups happening this season. And we've already seen a big shakeup in terms of, you mentioned Florida State. They were the 10th ranked team going into the country. They lost their first game of the season. Now, to their, you know, for their benefit, they don't fall in the rankings because the week zero matchup doesn't play into a factor in terms of rankings. It does help for conference play, at least for Georgia Tech in their case, but it does not affect Florida State's ranking for so far in the season. So
Oh
they'll
boy,
still
but
be the number 10 team in the country coming up on
yeah,
Monday.
it's gonna be insane watching the number 10 team in the country lose to Boston College. That's gonna be crazy.
Hey, I mean, listen, I think if Florida State plays the way they played, it's very possible they start the season 0-2. A
Yeah,
really
BC
bad
has
start
some
for them.
great players on that team. Their quarterback's really good. They have some good wide receivers. They're going to be a sneaky team in the ACC this year.
And and I'm glad we brought that up. I would love to talk about the ACC in just a little bit because I feel like that's a conference that realistically could be anyone's to win at this point. I don't think it's really top heavy. There's two teams and that's it. I feel like anyone could realistically make a case in that ACC to win the entire conference. But when you look at the top 25 polls, Johnson, was there anything really that stood out to you when you looked at these top 25 polls when they first initially came out? I know there was a certain team that you were kind of upset was ranked highly, but I understand why it happens. But other than that team, was there anything else that really stood out to you that you're looking, into going into this upcoming week one on Saturday?
Yeah, Ole Miss at 6 is a little outrageous to me. Not so much that they're a bad team, but I don't think they should be ranked that high. I think there's better teams in the SEC, better than Ole Miss, but maybe I'll be proven wrong.
I think it comes down to quarterback play, and them getting Jackson Dart back is probably the biggest reason why they're ranked that high. But I do agree. I think number 6 in the country, and this
I love
no
the
discredit,
SEC. No
no
disrespect to
discredit
Ole
to Ole
Miss.
Miss. Yeah, there's no disrespect whatsoever. The SEC is going to be a dogfight the entire year. You already
Mizzou
have
at 11
Bama.
too. It was
You
way too
have
high.
right, and Mizzou. Listen, they had a pretty good season last year. They finished in the
They
top
did.
10. They won
They
their
did.
bowl game against Ohio State. So anything's really possible for those SEC teams. But having to beat, Georgia, Bama. You now have added Texas and Oklahoma, who are going to be players this season as well. I mean, if Ole Miss definitely could make their mark this season and maybe prove people wrong if they play great and prove that they should be ranked the sixth overall team. But I can understand where you're coming from in terms of you maybe that you think they're highly ranked, and I think when it comes down to the media, they're just ranking it based off of quarterbacks. You look at the top 6 teams, maybe even 7 teams, and what they all have in common is they either have a returning quarterback or they got a transfer portal quarterback this past season.
I also want to point out they also have I don't want to say Charmin soft schedule, but if you look down their schedule, right, and we'll go more into this later. First thing,
This is Ole
Furman, Middle
Miss.
Tennessee State. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
no, Ole Miss. Yeah,
Yeah. I was
they're
just
at
confirming.
home versus Furman, Middle Tennessee State. Then they're away at Wake Forest, hosting Georgia Southern,
The
Kentucky
first
at South
four are
Carolina.
pretty
You
easily.
think they could go 6-0 there? Which I would be shocked if they don't go 6-0 here.
I would venture to think if they're going to struggle, that South Carolina game could be a trap. It's not really easy to go into South
Oh, there's
Carolina and
never
win.
anything easy in the SEC. It's any
Um,
given Sunday
that
for any
probably is their
conference.
biggest trap game, just because think about it. Also, it's the week before they go to LSU, so they could get caught off guard for that game.
See, that's where it could start because they're going to be at LSU. You have to home away games in college against ranked teams, despite if they're number one, number two, number three,
I mean,
whatever.
their schedule
It's
to
probably
end
a
the season
loss.
is really tough.
It's going to be rough because at LSU, assume it's a loss, right? Then just assume they split between the Oklahoma Georgia game. So
Most
that's
likely, they have a better chance of beating Oklahoma than Georgia,
of
probably.
course, but just assume they split that, right?
Right.
Assume they split
They
Oklahoma
could lose to
Georgia.
Arkansas because it's the week before the Georgia game, so that's very possible as well.
Yeah. And then they're at the Swamp in Florida.
Yep.
I think at least 2 losses on this schedule, maybe 4. And when you take that into account, do you think if you split the difference, do you think a 3-loss team ends up being the number 6 team in the country? I doubt it.
I think the beauty of the college football playoff is that if you lose 3 games, especially in the SEC, if you were to lose 3 games, let's say against,
They can still get in with three
they could
games,
still get
three
in.
losses. They're still
That's
in.
right.
Don't get me wrong here. If they lose those 3 games, and those are the only 3 games they lose, they're in the They're in the playoffs.
Right. And again, it all depends on what happens with the rest of the teams in front of them. But a 3-loss team very much well could be in the college football playoff this upcoming season.
Yeah, I would be shocked if one 3-loss team wasn't in it. And
Yeah,
I have a
I would
couple
be
teams from
stunned
the
if it,
SEC going to be in the college football playoffs.
yeah. I think it'd be really surprising if we didn't get a 3-loss team in there as well. I I mean, I'd be stunned if there was a 4-loss team. I don't think that's really going to be possible. But if it was going to be possible, it would be from the SEC. But is there anything else that really stood out to you in terms of the top 25 when it comes down to its rankings? Or
Yeah,
maybe a team that didn't make the rankings that should have been
Notre
in there?
Dame just got 7 just because for Notre Dame. They have a real test against the Aggies this Saturday, 7:30 in prime time. Michigan at 9 is astounding to me because they lost pretty much all their weapons and their head
Yeah.
coach, and they're under the microscope now. So those refs aren't going to treat them any better this season. So them at 9 is surprising too. Uh, I would probably put Iowa in the top 20. I'd bump them up a couple more spots. I know they have an anemic offense, to put it lightly, but
I
their
mean, at least
defense is
getting
top 5
Kane
in the country for a
McNamara,
reason.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to help you, I guess, but it's better than what
If
they've had
Cade
at
McNamara
quarterback.
can lead this offense to 22 points a game, they'll probably end up top 15 in the country again.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's the best quarterback they've had in a while, but I don't know if I trust it as much, but you never know. I mean, like I said, Iowa, the good thing for them is if you look at their schedule as well, I mean, you have a tough game at Ohio State. But if you look at the rest of the schedule, it's very winnable for the Hawkeyes if they wanted to maybe be a sneaky team to make the
Yeah,
college
you
football
lose
playoff.
against Ohio State, and then you should be winning the rest of your games.
Because you don't know what Washington brings to the table because they're obviously
It's a home
transitioning
game
into the
though.
Big Ten.
It's a
Right,
home
but I'm
game.
saying meaning that they lost a lot of talent from last season, obviously, and then now they're transitioning into their first year in the Big Ten. And then you have a home game against Wisconsin, which is big because obviously going into Wisconsin won't be easy. They do have to travel to UCLA. That'd be a tough game. I would also look into their game against Troy, with Troy coming to them. That could be a trap game. Troy is a very sneaky team from the Sun Belt that maybe could pull off a win. And obviously their game next week in week 2 against Iowa State is always a tight matchup between the two teams.
Yeah, so if Iowa gets 2 losses on here, they could finish top 15.
They could.
They could be in the same conversation as Ole Miss.
And if things go their way, they could maybe be one of those teams at the end of the season that make their case for the college football playoff. Absolutely. Um, so I guess other than that for the college football rankings, I think let's dive in to who we think are going to win. I guess we'll go into the now Big Four. It used to be the Big Five or Power Five, they used to call it, but the
Yeah,
unfortunate
it's the
circumstances with the
Power Four now.
Pac-12 um, has now led us to now having 4 big conferences for this upcoming season. And I think let's start off with the ACC, Johnson. I already mentioned how this could be a very interesting conference this year. Obviously, the defending champion Florida State off to a bad start this season with their loss in week 1 or week 0, excuse me, to Georgia Tech. Um, does that loss really impact them for the rest of the season? Do you think they're going to come out on top as the
Uh,
ACC champ, or do you have someone else?
no, no. And I didn't have Florida as my ACC champ before this. Anyone who's listened to the show before, which many of you have, do know I don't really, if we are late by a week or if we're off by a day, I don't change my predictions based off one game. Uh, they needed that game. They needed this game because they're going to go into Clemson. They're going to host Clemson, which I think Clemson will beat them outright. Then they're going to be at Miami and at Notre Dame, and then they have to host Florida. And that's rivalry games are never easy. Florida can have 0 wins on the season with this schedule. It's
And
definitely a possibility,
you know what's another
and they needed
sneaky
that
game for
game
them? And that's another sneaky game also at
at
SMU.
Duke. I was gonna say
Oh,
at
Duke,
Duke.
Duke. I don't know about Duke yet because they lost Riley Leonard. They have a new
Leonard
head
has a
coach
big
as
loss.
well. That's going to be that. I'm curious to see how Duke plays out because they had a really good season last year. Very up and
They
coming
did.
year for them. I feel like SMU might be the team to watch out for in the ACC as being a sleeper. This is a team that's coming off winning the American last year. They're bringing back most of their players from that American championship team. And they did struggle in their first game against Nevada, but they were able to come back and win that game. So if they get their kinks out and they're able to finish the season strong, SMU could be one of those teams that we maybe talk about at the end of the year, maybe being the ACC champion.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, but I won't hold my breath.
So if you don't have Florida State, who do you have winning the ACC?
I have Clemson. I've had Clemson since the beginning. I think they're going to have a complete turnaround from last year, and I think they win the ACC and make the college football playoffs.
Okay. I was going to say, if you want to say if they're in the college football playoff or not, they're most likely the teams that we pick are going to be
Yeah,
in the
these
college
four
football
winners are
playoff.
all in our college football playoff
Right.
brackets.
Okay.
And if you're not, Nick, I don't know what you're doing.
Try not to laugh as much. I do have a bit of a head cold right now, so I've been coughing the last couple of weeks. If you haven't heard from my voice, and I'm just a little bit congested right now. But with the college football season started, we had to get this podcast out. I definitely did not want to miss this one. But going back to the matter at hand, my ACC champion obviously will make the college football playoff as well. I don't have Clemson winning it. I do think they'll be in the championship game, but I don't know. I'm just not as sold on them as prior years. They do have Clay Klubnik. I think he'll have a really good season this upcoming year for the Tigers, but it could be nostalgia for this pick Johnson. I'm gonna go with Miami to win the ACC. I love what they got.
Only if they bring back the turnover change, they have it. The turnover chain, they have a chance.
If
That's
they
the
do, I
only way they
mean,
do.
if they do that, I'm all for it. But this is, they have a quarterback that you and I got, accustomed to learning about last season in Cam Ward from Washington State, who did some pretty good things for that Washington State team throughout the first half of that season. Obviously, the second half of the year got away from the Cougars, but there was a time being for Washington State where they were undefeated. They were making cases to maybe win the Pac-12 and maybe be a sneaky team to maybe sneak into the top four of the college football playoff last year. But as I mentioned, second half of the season got away from them. But for Cam Ward, now he goes to Miami, gets a fresh new start with this team. And the Canes, there's probably the biggest hype for this Canes team in a while for them. And, you have a big game upcoming, rivalry week against Florida to start your season. That will really set the tone for how Miami goes this season. But if they can come out on top with a victory on the road against the Gators, I like their chances of winning this ACC crown this season overall. If you look at their schedule this season, I mentioned the game against Florida to start the year in week 1, but then after that, not really big tests for them. Louisville on the road will be a tough test. They'll be at home against Florida State, which is a good game for them. Georgia Tech, if they play like they did in week 0, maybe that'll be a tough test for them on the road. But the Canes have a very favorable schedule that could get them in to the ACC championship, and for me personally, probably gets them in to the college football playoff as well.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if I wouldn't be shocked if Miami won it. I really wasn't considering Miami. I know they probably have some of the shortest odds to win the ACC. I haven't really done much research on the
I
odds team
actually
by
forgot to
team.
look that up.
I kind of just went based off of where the team finished last year. What did they bring back? Did they improve their roster at every
Right.
position? That's what I kind of do my rankings based off of. But
I'll
I
see
would
if I can get
assume
an
Miami's
updated.
pretty short odds if I had to guess.
I'll see if I can get an odds update as we go along. I think I have it right now. I actually have it. So Clemson is plus 300 favorite. They have the top odds, and if they're followed by Miami at 350.
Yeah,
So Miami has the second
that
best
doesn't
odds.
surprise me that much.
SMU
It's
at plus
good,
1,000. That's a very good value pick in
good
my
for
opinion.
Miami.
It's a good value pick. So I'm gonna go with the Canes to win the ACC. The next conference that we have, and I've also forgot to mention for the ACC, we already mentioned Stanford and SMU, the new two newcomers for that conference. So who knows how that all turns out. But speaking of a conference that has a lot new teams coming into it, how about the Big 12, Johnson? They're getting a lot of the Pac 12 teams as well as the Big 10 coming over to now fill out the roster after they lost Texas and Oklahoma. If you look at the conference in itself, you have newcomers in Arizona State as well as Arizona, Colorado, and the defending Pac-12 champion from 2 years ago, and Utah. So if you look at this conference as a whole, who do you think comes out on top as the Big 12 champion?
That is a great question. The Big 12, I don't see that many contenders to make the college football playoff. However, my bold prediction is the winner of the Big 12 will make the football playoff. Shocker. Uh, Utah,
Scorching take.
the Utes, new to the Pac 12, new to the Pac 12, new to the Big 12, coming over from the now defunct Pac 12. It's really the Pac 2, it's just Oregon State and Washington State over there. Give me Utah. Either that or it would be Kansas State as my dark horse. I know those are kind of lazy picks, but I can't see a team like a West Virginia, even though they're getting votes in the AP poll to win this conference. I
No
think this is Utah's to
Colorado?
lose. No
No Colorado?
Colorado. Nope. No Coach Prime. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Um, this is a tough conference to pick. I think there's another one like the ACC where anyone could realistically make a case to win it. For me, I'm gonna go pick the best player I think that comes out of this conference in terms of playmaking ability, and that's Ollie Gordon and the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I think Oklahoma State, you know, their big brother in Oklahoma has finally left. They're going to the SEC, and I like the Cowboys' chances this year to pull it out, and finally be that team to win the Big 12. If you look at their schedule as well, there is some tough games. You have Utah at home. You're at Kansas State. You play Arkansas as well, and you're at TCU in Colorado. Excuse me. Curious to see what happens.
Yeah, like you said, Colorado is certainly that interesting pick. It's probably going to be the hot pick for a lot of people. It wouldn't surprise me if the betting odds are pretty short on Colorado. Just because of the popularity of Coach Prime and how he's been trying to turn around that program. Had a very hot start last year. If you take a look at just the box scores last year, it says like, oh well, he only was like maybe 25 points overall from being having a winning record because he had close games against teams like Arizona State and Stanford. However, they were a lot of epic collapses and no defense being played in those games. So if Dion can kind of clean that up a little bit, he should be looking a lot better. Will he make a bowl game this year? Probably. I think with the players that they've had a year now to learn his playbook. He's gotten better players at each position. Uh, New conference, new opportunities. I think Dion gets it done at Colorado, but I don't think he wins the Pac-12. Utah is my pick. I
Big
said that
12, but I,
before.
I get it.
Yeah, I keep on saying Pac-12 because I'm talking about all these
Honestly,
former
there's so
Pac-12
many
teams that
Pac 12
should
teams
still
in
be
here.
in the Pac-12, but now in the
Yeah,
Big 12. Excuse me. Utah to win the Pac-12. The Big 12. I keep on doing it. But I do like
it's all right.
Oklahoma State though. Oklahoma State, not to be a spoiler, is one of the teams from the Big 12 which I think can make the college football playoffs, just because they've always kind of been in position to be position at the end of each year. They're like, oh well, they're sneaking around 14, 15 at the end of the year. So I think this is the year they finally get to like 11, 12, finish the year strong, and they make the football playoffs. I don't think they win it, but it'll be interesting.
Okay. Let's now move on to one of the top two conferences that got a lot of new turmoil in terms of conference realignment. That's the Big Ten. You added newcomers in Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington. So a lot of big playmakers coming in from those conferences as well as returners in the defending champions Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, just to round off a few. Who do you have winning the Big Ten?
Oh, the Big Ten. This was such a hotly contested question for many years, and I feel like with the addition of all these new Pac-12 teams, it's even more highly contested. In any given year, the answer is usually Michigan, Ohio State, one of those two flip flop, and then you have the occasional. I guess just to be different, pick Penn State because it's Penn State's year. It's not 1985
Yeah, they
anymore.
always
Uh,
seem to choke one week and then it costs them the season.
Penn State fans and Notre Dame fans have something in common. They both think it's 1984. Now, going into my pick, I'm going to pick Oregon, actually. I know it's the boring pick, yada, yada. They won the Pac 12. I think they do it here in the Big Ten, just mainly because I'm not going to pick Ohio State because I don't like Ohio State. Ohio State probably has the second shortest odds or the shortest overall odds, but give me Oregon.
So I
Uh,
forgot to mention. I'll make my point once you're done with your pick.
yeah, no, they've done he's done a fantastic job with that program over there, and it's really top notch. It's gonna be curious. I'm gonna be curious to see on a week to week basis how all these teams react to the jet lag flying halfway across the country. For some of these teams are gonna travel 4, 5, 6 hours on a plane and have a time zone difference for a game that's the next day. So I want to see how teams are gonna react to that because I think that's gonna be a. These aren't professionals. These are still, I guess you can call them minor league, or
You
I
don't
don't
want to
want to
call
call
them
them.
kids, but
I
yeah,
guess they are professional now because they're getting paid to do this, but
yeah,
they're not
no,
major
they
league. So I
definitely
guess
are now.
I'll call them minor league athletes doing this for the first time because it's not like it's an Aaron Judge or if it's an Aaron Rodgers that have been doing this in their entire lives. They're used to it. It's like, oh, cross country flight. I've done this, 1,000 times. A lot of these guys have never done this in their life before, so on a weekly basis, it's gonna be interesting.
I did forget to mention the odds for the Big 12 before I make my pick for the Big 10.
Sure.
Utah has the best odds in the Big 12, and they're followed by Kansas State and then Oklahoma State. So that they are plus 280 to win the Big 12.
Yeah, all could be good in Manhattan if Manhattan, Kansas, that is, if the uh, if the Kansas State Wildcats can make the playoffs, especially with
It's
those short
possible.
odds to win the Big 12. Almost said
They
Pac 12
have
again.
yeah they have plus 400 odds. Kansas State
Good odds. I would take those if you just have some money, not to light on fire, but if you have some.
money to light on fire.
Nah, listen, it's not lighting on fire, but just to kind of like, oh, if you're confident on a futures bet and you have some money that you could afford to stow away for 3 to 4 months, yeah, I would place a little bit on Kansas State. I wouldn't mind sprinkling a little bit on that.
Hey, listen, sometimes those are value picks. You never know.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
For me, Johnson, I don't hate the pick. I'm gonna go with Oregon as well to win the Big Ten. I think the biggest thing for them is they got Dylan Gabriel, the former Oklahoma quarterback. He now comes to the team, and they were so close to win the Pac-12 last year. I just like what they bring to the table this season. They have the second best odds behind Ohio State to win the Big Ten this year, but I don't know. I trust Dylan Gabriel more than Will Howard going to Ohio State. Ohio State probably has the better roster on paper, but
All
I
about
think
quarterback
Oregon.
play.
Yeah, I think Oregon brings a lot more to the table in terms of what they're going to be, playing this season. And Oregon's schedule is certainly not easy. They're playing home against Ohio State, and then they're at Michigan. So those are obviously two huge games that were going to be circled on their calendar this year. And even if they lose those two games, they still probably make the college football playoff. But if they're able to split at least one of those games, they're going to be in the Big Ten championship, and I feel like they will split at least one. So I have them winning the Big Ten title as a whole.
Yeah, just with the new realignment of conferences, the days of the undefeated college football playoffs, I think that's coming to a halt.
I would
Uh,
be there probably be
I'd
like
be
one or two
shocked.
teams that are going to be undefeated conference champions, most likely.
Sure, undefeated conference champions and undefeated overall teams are two different stories. There's always going to be
Yeah,
undefeated conference champions. I'm not doubting that. But what I am going to doubt a little bit is the validity of a team going, say, 15-0 or 16-0. I
like
think
what we saw from Michigan last year.
I think the days of those days of that are kind of far behind us now.
Yeah, for the Big Ten, you have Ohio State at plus 145, followed by Oregon at plus 200, and then Penn State has the third best odds of plus 500. Michigan rounds that
Probably
out at
plus
plus
a
900
thousand.
and fourth.
Wow, it's close. Okay.
Just missing 1,000. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the final conference is the biggest one, the SEC.
Big boy
Um,
football.
yeah, Texas and Oklahoma to an already stacked conference with the likes of Alabama, Georgia, LSU. Ole Miss and Missouri, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and who knows what else brings to the table in terms of the teams that aren't even ranked. The teams that I mentioned are they're basically all in the top 25. I think that was what 7 teams or 8
Yes,
teams,
sir.
whatever it was. I don't even know the number off the top of my head. I'll do my math in a second. But who was your pick, Johnson, win the SEC this year?
Oh man, old reliable. It's gonna be Georgia. They're out for blood. If I had to take a guess, the head coach of the University of Georgia, uh,
Kirby Smart.
set yeah, Kirby Smart all summer said, "You see how these Florida State guys are complaining with Georgia? We don't do that." He's probably said, "You see what they did? They complained all off
I
season.
mean,
They've been running their mouths saying
look
that
what
they
they
should have
did
been
in
in
the
the
bowl
playoffs."
game against Florida State too.
Yeah, you know what? He's been using them as kind of as motivation, and he's now it's starting to pay dividends because they see like, hey, this is what they've been going off about. They've been mouthing off this entire time, and what it get them? It got them their ass kicked overseas in Dublin against Georgia State,
Yeah,
Georgia Tech, a team that's not even supposed to sniff the college football playoffs, and effectively their season's already over. So if they had I think Kirby Smart has really lit a fire under this team this offseason, and after getting snubbed out of the college football playoffs, which I don't listen on paper, it doesn't make any sense, but in reality, it does make sense with the way the chips kind of fell and what teams could get in, what teams couldn't get in. So it sucks in that regard, but I think he's got him ready and in shape this year to win this O line. And by the way, Georgia actually has the 33rd best O line in the country. Did you know that, Nick?
I did not.
Yeah, 33rd best O line in the country. That includes NFL teams.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I got you.
I'd actually save it at 32nd. The Patriots are 33rd, but I'd like
And
to.
the Giants are too far behind them.
Yeah.
They're probably 35. Um, I can't really say anyone but Georgia. I have to pick Georgia to win this one. I mean, they're just even with losing some talent, they're still just too good on paper. And you're getting back Carson Beck, who's potential, number 1 overall draft pick maybe for the becoming NFL draft this season. But you also mentioned how their season ended last year, which is I think a great point. They lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and not only did that cost them the SEC title, but it cost them a chance of a three-peat last year as well. So they want to win a national championship again, and I think, regardless if they win the SEC or not, they're going to be in the college football playoff to begin with. They obviously have the best odds to win the SEC at plus 180. And then they're followed by Texas, then Alabama, and then LSU in that top 4 region. But it's kind of like what the same sentence I made last year. It's Georgia's conference, really, in my opinion, to lose. They are the number 1 ranked team in the country for a reason, and everyone's gunning to beat them, even though they're not the defending national champion.
Yeah,
They're
this is
just that
Georgia's world. You're just living in it.
right. Like they're just that good of a team, and you're trying to beat them. And listen, their schedule is certainly not easy either, because they're going to be playing some tough games this year as well. Obviously, they play Alabama in a couple weeks. They're starting off the season with a home game against Clemson. They're at Texas. They're at Ole Miss. They're home against Tennessee. They're home against Florida. They don't have easy games, that's for sure. And there's a strong possibility maybe they lose 2 or 3 games this year. But I don't see it happening. I think if they're going to lose, it would probably be maybe the games at Alabama and Texas. But
Oh, of course.
other than that, I still
Alabama,
think they make
Texas,
it.
no slouches. Listen, Texas won the Big
Yeah.
12 last year, and
Yeah,
Quinn Ewers got the title belt from the Undertaker.
right. I
So
mean,
he's transferring those powers over to him right now.
yeah,
So
there's
in the
big
world
the
of
big evil.
kayfabe, the Undertaker has put over Quinn Ewers, and he's gonna be the next national champion, maybe.
Um, yeah, maybe who knows? I think if you're going to be picking this conference, it's got to be between the 3 of Georgia, Bama, and Texas. I think those are the top 3 teams in this
And of
conference.
course, you'll have some dark horses along the way
Right.
because the SEC is not. It's the
It's no
best conference in the
slouch.
country.
Right. But I think it's just Georgia's to lose. So I'm going to go with the Dogs to win another SEC championship and go back into the college football playoff this season.
It is going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to. I guess all these teams try to
So
compete.
now, with that being said, we've already made our picks for the top four conferences. Let's now try to dive into who we think is going to make this first year expanded playoff format. Now, if you remember, it's I think the 11 best teams ranked, and then the number 12 team is going to be a non-power 5 highest ranked team, which is either going to be a
Yes.
conference champion or if that team is ranked at some point in the season. So that's how it all unfolds. So with that said, I mean, you pretty much said your top four conference champions are going to make the college football playoff. Who are the other teams you have making the college football playoff? And this is in no particular order whatsoever. Also, keep that in mind. These are the 12 teams that you think at the end of the season are going to be playing for the national championship come late December, early January.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if I had to pick a team, pick all these teams in order, I think I would drive myself mad. So with that being said, this is in absolutely no particular order. I guess I'll get into it right now. Geez, this is tough. Clemson, Utah, Oregon, Georgia. So obviously my conference championship, the winners of the conference championships, right there. Those four. Ohio State, I have getting in non-conference champion. Alabama, non-conference champion. Texas, non-conference champion. Penn State, non-conference champion. I think this is finally the year that Notre Dame makes the college football playoffs. I know they
This is
did it
ballsy going
recently.
Penn State and Notre
Penn
Dame.
State and Notre Dame, because Notre Dame has the benefit of not being in a conference. So when they finish the year ranked 10th, they're going to be biting their nails. They may be the last team to get in, but they will get in. Oklahoma State, which I mentioned earlier, and I had real big problems with these last two. I tried all these teams and I couldn't really think of one. So I'm going with my Aggies, of course.
Of course.
Gig
Yep.
And then here's the surprise: the undefeated conference champion for a non-power five school, which I have making the college football playoffs. Liberty.
I like it.
Liberty is going to have some of the one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Uh, Definitely a top draft prospect. If you haven't heard of him, you're certainly going to learn his name this year.
Yeah,
Kydon Salter.
I've
Kydon Salter.
I've known his name from playing NCAA 25, and yeah, that's all I need to say about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
former
met some.
SEC commit to Tennessee, and he kind of lit him up last year. Little undersized for his position. That's the way
Cookie
the college.
crumbles.
I guess the yeah no that's the way the quarterback position's kind of going nowadays. So far, the 6'5" Giants are kind of gone. The pocket passers, the Tom Brady's, the Mannings, they're kind of gone. And we're going into like the 6'1", 6'2" guys that can really move the football on the ground and they can really throw it deep if they have to. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Kydon Salter here and the Liberty Flames to be the
to be
12th team to
the
make the playoffs.
right now. I'll try to do you a favor as well, Johnson, for our viewers. I'm actually going to put so that you could make a parlay of all your teams making the college football playoff.
Yeah, no thanks.
Do you want to know what your odds would be?
Sure.
All right. This is based off of FanDuel because it's the first website I could find. Not sponsored whatsoever. Let's see.
But please do.
And they could not verify my location, so that will have to be on stand for now. I do have it
On
in my
stand,
bets. Yeah, I have it in my bet slip. I can tell you that.
we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Everything's on the fly here at the All Gas No Break Sports Show. In the meantime, let me make my picks for the college football playoff. So obviously, I have Miami, Oklahoma State, Oregon, and Georgia as my top teams to
You have
win
to
their
specify
respective
Miami,
conferences.
Florida, or Miami,
Miami,
Ohio, because
Florida,
I have
Florida.
to know here. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Miami, Florida. Go Canes. Go Canes. Hopefully, the U is back. Um, Now, I think it's no brainer that Alabama gets in for me. I think it would be. I think I'd be stunned if they didn't get back in, as well as Texas. I think they're going to be three, maybe even four teams in the SEC that make the college football playoff. I have those two adding on with Georgia. The Big Ten, I have another team as well. It's going to be Ohio State. I mean, if they don't make the college football playoff, then Ryan Day is going to be fired. I mean, there's no question about it whatsoever. So the Buckeyes, they have to make it, or else he's pretty much toast. Uh, Again, I'm doing this on the fly right now. I did not have. I'm just picking off of what I think is going to happen. So I have those teams early. It's just tough. I wanna. I'm trying not to base also go off of what you did. I think Notre Dame will also make it. I'd be stunned if they
Listen, you
didn't
don't
make it
have
with
to. You
Riley
can pick
Leonard.
some of my teams. Like, oh, how dare
Yeah,
you
I'm
think
going
Alabama
to.
and Texas are going to make the
Yeah,
playoffs? How that
yeah.
is not an original thought. Ohio State. How dare you?
How dare I make that pick? I don't know if I don't know if we see two ACC or two Big 12 teams make it.
I have one ACC team in here because I believe that as the worst conference by far is now the new Pac-12.
You think that's the worst conference now? You think it's worse
Yeah,
than
because
the Big 12?
the Big 12 at least has you could see two Big 12 teams making it easily, right? You could see
Yeah.
Oklahoma State and you could see Utah making it, right?
Yeah.
Can you see Florida State making it right now? No. And then
No.
after Clemson, or I guess it's Clemson for you, it's Miami Hot. So do you think Clemson can make it?
Yeah, probably.
You think they could probably make it?
I think for me in the ACC, if whoever's playing in the championship game is probably going to be in a spot to play in the college football
Play
playoffs. So
for it. But yeah. But I
yeah,
think
you
the
know what?
ACC runner up is probably going to finish at 12, and then with a loss, do they make it in? That's my question. Like, think of
Yeah.
Louisville from a couple years ago. What did Louisville finish? 11? And then they lost, right?
Well, they lost. Remember, they lost. Was you talking about last season when they lost to Kentucky?
Yeah.
If they didn't lose to Kentucky, they would have had a case. But because they lost to Kentucky in the final week of the season, that hurt them at the end of the year.
Yeah, but
that was the
I don't
problem.
think they would have made it
I know what you're getting
regardless of
at.
that. But you know
Yeah,
what I
I know
mean,
what you're
right?
getting at.
They
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
would have finished 7 or 8, and then they would have lost, and they're kind of right on that borderline.
Right. Uh, you know what? I get they lost a lot in the offseason. I'm still gonna have Michigan in the college football playoff.
That is a crazy take to me.
Like I don't. It came down to picking between them and Penn State. I just feel like Penn State's gonna choke again, and they have Donovan Edwards and a really good run defense. I think they'll be one of those teams that has 3 losses that probably makes it in. And then my final 2 teams, I will go. This is, I feel like I need to add another Big 12 team because I feel like that's gonna be the same scenario where there's gonna be 2 teams in that conference.
See, I just said there's one ACC team. That's how I took it.
That's true. That's true. I think that's gonna
And
be
if
the
you
case
want
with
to
Big
count, if you
12.
want to count Notre Dame as a quasi ACC member, they had that one member. They had that one year during COVID, which
Yeah,
they joined. So Notre Dame is my ACC adjacent team to make it.
I'll go with.
Big.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. It's your pick.
I was gonna say I'll take Ole Miss.
Okay.
I think Jackson Dart will do just enough to help them get there. They'll probably be one of those teams that has to play in the first round where they have to probably go to on the road to someone's stadium. They play one of those first round games, and then for the non-power five, give me the Tulane Green Wave to come out on top and win the American and move on to the college football playoff.
Tulane. I like that.
Yeah, I was between them and App State, and I really wanted to take App State, but I like the potential of Tulane to maybe make some noise. They almost won the American last year and lost to SMU, but I think they come back with a still very good roster on hand, and I think they get it done this year. And they not only win their conference, but they make it to the college football playoff. Now, will they make any noise in the college football playoff? Probably not, but I could be wrong.
All right. So I think with that being said, we have our 12 picks to kind of sum mine up right here. I have Clemson, Utah, Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, and Liberty. Those are my top 12.
And then for me, I have Miami or Oklahoma State, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Clemson, Michigan, Ole Miss, and rounded out by Tulane. I will get those odds, I promise. I'll do that while we do our next segment, Johnson. And I would love for you to inform the viewers or the listeners at home. What is this next segment and what does it involve?
So this is the highly anticipated return of the Mushing Hour. The Mushing Hour is a play on NFL Red Zones and Scott Hansen's famous Witching Hour, where in the Witching Hour where losers become winners and winners become losers. It's the same thing here, where we mush the team and the team that's probably going to end up winning is now going to end up losing because that is the Mushing Hour. If two of us pick the same team, same line, pick against us because more often than not, if we both agree on one thing, it's probably not going to happen. So, with that being said, we have a couple games for our Saturday slate here. We have the first game of the day, at least on our schedule for Mushing Out. We have the University of Georgia, technically at home in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, hosting the number 14 Clemson Tigers here. Georgia is a 13.5 point favorite, and the over-under slate at 48.5. I'm going to get the first pick, and I'm going to say Georgia is going to cover 13.5 points here. They had so many games throughout the season where they would just absolutely destroy SEC teams, like 3-4 touchdowns in the first quarter. And it might happen against Clemson here, especially the first game of the season. So give me Georgia to easily cover. They have the top O line in the nation by far, and that D line on Clemson is not going to be able to do anything. Uh, the quarterback's gonna be able to sit in that pocket and for an eternity to get passes off. So someone's eventually gonna get open with all of those speed, with all that speed from the Georgia wide receivers, and they have so much versatility at tight end and running back as well. So give me Georgia minus 13.5.
Yeah, we're gonna have our first mush because I also have Georgia minus 13.5.
All right,
Now,
Clemson plus 13.5 is the pick, everyone.
now remember, there were some points last year where we both picked the same thing. And listen, our records last season were pretty good. You finished the game under 500 for the overall season record of 2023 and 24.
Yeah, you
I was
killed it.
19 games over. I mean, I had a pretty good
Yeah.
year last year.
Yeah, we were kind of inverse on the NFL. I was like 20
Oh, you were
games
crushing the
over,
NFL.
and you were like 500 on the NFL, and this is the inverse here. So maybe you'll be opposite this year. Who knows?
Who knows? I do want to point out also, I tried to look up those odds. You cannot parlay them.
Yes,
So you can
that's
only
what I
pick a
figured.
team.
That'd be kind of crazy.
Do you want to guess who your highest odds team though is for the playoff?
Liberty,
It is not Liberty. Funny enough,
Texas A&M.
it is not Texas A&M.
Really, really. Okay, is it OK State?
It is Oklahoma State at plus 700 odds.
So what were Texas A&M and Liberty? Then they have to be in the same ballpark.
Texas A&M plus 220. Liberty plus 440.
Really,
Yeah,
really. A&M plus 220. I like those odds. I
yeah,
might
that's
go.
pretty good odds.
I might sprinkle that.
My highest overall is Tulane. No surprise there at plus 1100. I like the value of that. I don't
That's
mind
a
that
long
value.
shot.
It's a very
That's a lotto ticket.
it could be a lotto ticket, but I don't mind it. But going back to the mushy hour, yeah, pretty much everything you said. Carson Beck's gonna have a field day in this game. It's not that It's not in my opinion that Clemson's bad. It's just Georgia's better, and they're gonna show it in this game. They're trying to make a statement. We saw what happened last year when Georgia played an ACC team that was expected to do some great things, and they beat them by 60 in a bowl game. Even if they weren't playing most of their players. I got Georgia win this one very convincingly and proving to the world why they are the top team to be in the entire country.
All right.
What's our next game, Johnson?
The next game we have number 8 Penn State going into West Virginia, going into Morgantown. West Virginia, despite being at home, they are an 8.5 point. Excuse me, 8 point underdog against Penn State. They are the favorite. 51.5 points is the over under. Give me the over here. I mean, Big 12 game
Big 12
in
defense.
yeah, Big 12 defense here. I think West Virginia gives up 30 and maybe they get 25 back, so that puts me at 55. So give me the over 51.5 here. Winner of this game, probably Penn State. I would be shocked if they lose this. But give me the over 51.5 here.
Now, Johnson, do you remember how this game ended last season between these two teams?
It was a heartbreaker.
No. Well, it was close for the most part. But if you remember, Penn State was a 20.5 point favorite with the over under 50.5. Penn State had the game won, and they scored a late touchdown before when they were up
I
two
do remember that to
possessions
hit the over.
to not only hit the over but hit the cover. So
Yes, I
if
do
you had
remember
the
that now.
over and the spread, you were a huge Penn State fan that week. So now there's some little bit of people are on West Virginia this year. It's a home game. Their West Virginia fans are calling it the biggest home game they've had since the 1990s. This is a big deal for West Virginia. It really is going to impact how their season's going to go for them this year. Um, I could see this being a very close game. I don't know how I feel about West Virginia as a whole. I think they'll be a sleeper in the Big 12, maybe a team that maybe contends for a Big 12 championship. I just think Penn State's just a little bit. I just think they're still better on paper. Um, I will go with Penn State -8 in this one. I'm very scared to take the -8 because I think West Virginia probably will cover. Um, but I will do my first two timer. I also go with the 51.5 over because of what you said, Big 12 defenses.
Okay. So the next game we have, one of the hottest rivalries in the state of Florida. We have Nick's projected ACC winner, the number 19 Miami Hurricanes, going into the swamp, into Florida. The Gators at home. Despite being at home, Miami is the 2.5 point favorite on the road. 53.5 is the slated over under. Give me Florida plus 2.5. If you're gonna get, I think Florida wins this game. If you can give me the points, I'll take them. So give me Florida plus 2.5, just a little as an insurance policy here.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, this is a pickup game for me. Realistically, I think we know where we're going to go with it just because I picked Miami to win the ACC. But I think it comes down to quarterback play for them in this one. Cam Ward versus Graham Mertz. Mertz had a solid season last year for the Gators, but I think Cam Ward, as I mentioned earlier on, is going to provide Miami the spark that they need to go not only win this game, but maybe ultimately win the ACC. So I'll have Miami -2.5 in this one to start their season off 1-0. But we'll see what happens. As I mentioned, it could be a pick'em game. But I know, Johnson, this next game is the game that you are most looking forward to this upcoming weekend.
Absolutely, it is my Texas A&M Aggies at home. The number 7 Notre Dame Fighting Irish on the road, going into the hellish atmosphere of Kyle Field at Texas A&M in College Station, Texas. A&M at home -3 point favorites. 46.5 is the slated over under. Give me the Aggies -3.
Okay.
Kyle Field rated as the toughest place to play in college football. Many historic upsets happened there, such as number 1 Alabama a couple of years ago. Uh, I've been there. It's an incredible atmosphere. 110,000 fans in the stand. Yeah, it's intimidating if you're the opposing team.
Yeah. No, that's for certain. I don't want to mush them, Johnson. I think A&M wins, but I think for your sanity and for your sake, I don't think I take A&M to win the game or -3. I'll just play it safe and go with the over. I'll do everyone a nice solid here. I know there's a lot of people that are A&M fans that listen to our podcast, so for your sake, I will take A&M to win, or not to win. I will take the over for this game, and we'll have no stake in who wins it. So I cannot be blamed if A&M loses the game. I will just take the spread and hope for points. That's all I'm going to do. And then that leads
And
us to our
finally,
final game, which is going to happen on Sunday. Keep in mind.
Sunday night football, right before the NFL.
Yeah.
We have number 23, the USC Trojans, going into Death Valley to take on the
Nope.
LSU
They're going into Allegiant Stadium this week,
Allegiant
Johnson.
Stadium. This is in
They're going to be in
Vegas. You're
Vegas. Yep.
right. LSU. So this is a neutral game, but I would say
Neutral
this is
site game.
definitely more of a USC favorite than
Absolutely.
LSU.
Yep.
Not going into Death Valley. Excuse me. This is the Vegas game. Taking on the number 13 Louisiana State University Tigers. Go Tigers. LSU -4 favorite at this neutral site. Slightly USC favored. 64.5 is the slated over under. I would not touch this over under with a 10-foot pole.
Nope.
I realize it's Pac 12 or former Pac 12 defense and SEC defense, but I want nothing to do with this. Give me LSU -4, even though I think USC is at an advantage here because they're definitely going to have more fans here than LSU, being that
Hey, LSU travels.
Las Vegas. Listen, Las Vegas becomes California every weekend, so
Yeah, that's true.
uh, the Bay Area is 4 hours away, LA is 4 hours away, so it's not like it's a long drive for a lot of these folks. So Southern California will be there in Vegas to cheer on their Trojans. So give me LSU -4, despite all that nonsense.
Well, thinking about the beauty of this game, Johnson, for these two teams, both of these teams have a new quarterback because both of their quarterbacks from last season were the top two picks in the NFL draft, that being Caleb Williams from USC and Jaden Daniels from LSU. So now you have two new teams with new quarterbacks. And, that's where I'm kind of off guard with the whole new, the over under. I don't know if that many points are going to be scored. Both of these new quarterbacks did play in their team's respective bowl games last season to end the year, and they put up a lot of points in that game. But there's a big difference from, last season's teams, obviously, going into this season's teams. There's a lot of new turmoil for these two teams. Um, I hate to piggyback it, but I'm also going to go LSU -4. I just don't know what I'm getting out of USC right now on this season. And I trust Brian. It's crazy to say, but I trust Brian Kelly a lot more right now at this current point in time. So
Brian
give me the
Kelly
go
is the
Tigers.
greatest coach to get to probably 10, 11 wins on a season and be disappointed. So
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
this
you're
is a
not wrong.
game where he probably wins.
Yeah, because they're gonna have a tough schedule no matter what this season. But I think this is one they get done. Um, so that's gonna wrap up our first mushing hour of the college football season, Johnson. Anything you want to sign off on before we wrap this one up?
Go Aggies. I hope they win the national championship. I'm looking forward to another exciting year of college football, all the drama that's going to ensue, and I hope the NIL does not ruin the sport. And if UConn wants to play college football in the Big 12 in 7 years, they will be absolutely destroyed. I don't care if they want for basketball. I hope UConn goes to the Big 12 so their program can once again die after the Big East spelled them out for a second time. So
Yeah, there's no there's no angerness towards UConn
no,
for
because
what just
listen, at the
happened.
end of the day, the Big East bailed them out. They were
I
dying. They
know.
were playing games on ESPNU if they were lucky in front of 800 people in Alabama. And they go back to the Big East. They go to the Garden. They get their rivalries back with Providence, Georgetown, Villanova, St. John's. They get all these historic rivalries back. And they win 2 national championships. It's great for the league, whatever.
Might
And
win a
now they want
third.
to go back to the Big 12 because they want to play football. A football. No one has interest playing football in the Northeast. If you're not named Penn State, it doesn't work here. Rutgers has been trying to revive that program for years, and they're a state school with a lot of money invested. They have big time donors, and they're having difficulties. You think an upstart UConn team that's going to play in a third rate conference is going to magically become good at football? I have oceanfront property out in Idaho to sell you if you believe that. But that is my rent to end the show.
And my rant will be the delusional Syracuse fan that's now rooting for Kyle McCord after pretty much shit talking him all of last season for being at Ohio State. Now
How
I'm going to
irony.
buy into the hype. I have no other choice but to do so. Give me 7 wins, Kyle. I'll take it. We'll take anything at this point, being an Orangeman fan. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this college football season. A lot of new turmoil, new playoff format, new teams in terms of conference realignment, and new faces and new places. It's going to lead to a great college football season for this 2024-2025 season. And we'll be here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show to cover you all on what happens each and every week of the college football season and what we'll be breaking down each and every game and their impact, as well as previewing next week's matchups on our mushing hour, which we always love to do each and every week. But Johnson, this is the last week for a little while, which we'll be doing 1 episode per week. Next week will be the start of 2 episodes per week, as next week not only gives us college football week 2, but week 1 of the NFL season is going to be kicking off next Thursday. I'm looking forward to it, and I know as well as you are looking forward to it. So, going to be some busy times here on the All Gas No Break Sports Show, and we'll be here to cover you all for this upcoming football season here on the show. We'll have to see how it all is going to unfold, but we'll have to tune in next week to see how week 1 unfolds in the college football season, what we'll look forward to in week 2 of the college football year as well as kick off our NFL season preview. So look forward to that next week here on the show. But for this week, that's going to do it for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. College football week 0 has wrapped up. We now get into week 1 of the college football season this upcoming Saturday. 5 big important games, maybe some upsets along the way. Who knows what's going to happen this upcoming Saturday. But as I mentioned, new faces and new places in terms of the transfer portal, new conference realignment, as well as a new college football playoff format. 2024/2025 going to be a hellish great year for the college football playoff season, and we're all looking forward to see how it all unfolds here as we go along this season. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy your college football Saturday.